So today I would love to dive in to some common misconceptions we see with people and their CMMI appraisal, where I feel like a lot of people really focus on the consulting portion. So the actual appraisal itself is almost an afterthought. When it comes to first timers with their first CMMI appraisal, what are the most common misconceptions that you see?
Most common misconception for appraisal is people think it's similar to ISO and they just need to get in touch with the appraisal company and the appraisal will happen like the next day or in the next week. Appraisal,
Right.
it's the process itself. There are some steps to it, and a lot of people are not aware about those steps. So the first timers need to understand that CMMI Institute appraisal system needs an instance created where there is almost like an intake form gets populated and that gets uploaded into the institute appraisal system, and that gets the ball rolling, and that has to be done about 60 days prior. Sometimes 45 days is acceptable, but 60 days prior this has to happen, and that will be followed by another step of readiness review, and then you'll be going through an appraisal. If you are a level 3, it will be a week long. If you are a level 2, it will be 4 days, that exercise. So not knowing these, the first timers can always make a mistake of not setting proper timelines.
Right. So it sounds like 60 days is the minimum. What
Correct.
would you suggest for an organization? When would be a good time for a new organization to secure their appraisal body?
When you have engaged a consultant and you are halfway done, or say 60, 70% done with your consulting, you don't have to be completely done. That is the point you want to engage with the appraisal body, because the lead appraisers and all would like to also review the level of effort and also can give you some feedback that, okay, this is where you need to focus on. They won't go and do a readiness review, but they can give you the inputs that, okay, this seems a little weaker and you need to beef it up.
Okay,
So
excellent.
it's CMMI is almost a lot more collaborative as opposed to any ISO, where ISO is, okay, show me where these things are. In CMMI, there is an avenue. You can see, okay, show me what has been done. And if that's not sufficient, show me another evidence. So it's almost like, you're trying to figure out how best it was implemented as opposed to just do it a certain way.
Right. And that speaks to another difference between CMMI and ISO, where with ISO, there's no constraints on how many certifications that an organization or individual can do, but it's very different for CMMI, and that can also sometimes create surprise headaches. So would you be able to speak a little bit to some of the rules that the CMMI Institute has for the lead auditors, the lead
So
appraisers?
correct. So for the lead appraisers, there are these changes that have happened last couple years, is that the lead appraiser can only appraise 16 organizations within a year. And that too within, if you are talking a window of a quarter, then it cannot go beyond, you can do about, give or take, you can do 6 or 7. You can't just do way too many. You can't do like 10 of them in the quarter and then 6 in the later part of the year. That's not how you need to have an even spread of the appraisals. So there is a limit of within 90 days, you want to really do only, maybe 2 a month, that kind of a spread, or 1 or 2 a month, that kind of a spread is necessary. So also considering that how the RFPs are coming out, there can be sometimes the first time organizations may not realize that as soon as if there is even a dialogue of RFP, or there is information at the information stage, you want to be more prepared from that stand, as opposed to the RFP drops and only you have like 30 days to respond with a proposal. That is way too late, unless
Right.
what happened with the NASA soup, that you just have to show right now that you are in process. And that gives you 12 months time, which is a good amount of time to be able to showcase, your capability and get appraised. So yeah, there's no constraint on the ATM, but there are definitely constraints on the lead appraisers.
And why did they put that constraint on the lead appraisers?
Because these appraisals are, first of all, they are very intense. There is a lot of evidences that are checked. Also, the standard, it's a collaborative effort, even with the ATMs, but there is a lot of evidence verification. So think of as if you're doing a level 3, every PA has give or take like 12 rows, and you're checking all the PAs, and 2 evidences linked per PA. Then you are checking over 500 evidences.
Wow.
Somebody's trying to do that within a week-long time. Even with support, there is a lot of, effort that goes in and
Right.
verifications that are going in. And in order to make sure that people are not burned out, CMMI Institute came up with this requirement.
Absolutely. It definitely sounds like it makes sense to have it's like a quality management control for
Exactly.
CMMI just because it
Right.
is so intense.
Right.
That's
And people can go through these in a fast pace, but what happens is the quality of the work as well as the validity of these certifications that can become questionable. How can you go through such a thorough process and get through the appraisal? And how can some people do so many appraisals? So that kind of creates a lot of disparities too.
I definitely understand the method to the madness. So thank you for explaining that. And then also, when it comes to appraisal team members, I know sometimes organizations like to get some of their own people trained to be able to provide an appraisal team member. But can you speak to having a new team member or two on that appraisal team and how an organization can make sure that they have a really strong team for their appraisal? Because I know sometimes people think they can have, 2 new appraisal team members, but would you be able to speak a little bit to how that works?
So generally, when people go through the appraisals and the first timers, right, you want to have your people trained to as ATMs. Lead appraisers, what they look as the qualification of all the ATMs. So it's the experience level. Generally, in a particular appraisal, the lead appraiser does not want way too many new ATMs. Also, what is being done, since, as I mentioned, this is a collaborative effort, the ATMs they will be assigned certain PAs, and they are checking on the evidences and making sure that these evidences are correct. So when they are verifying, new ATMs will run into some questions, and filling those workbooks up with the evidence that they verified, they will have more questions because they have the training, but not the competence, the required competence and the experience.
Right.
So in an appraisal, we generally discourage, and also the lead appraisers discourage having more than one new ATM, because that shows that the ATM team is not very strong in their experience level. It's a cumulative number that gets generated and submitted in the institute, that how many people had so much experience. So again, that numbers and are also defined by the institute. So if those values go down, then it does not show a very effective appraisal. And that can be a red flag.
Right. So, I mean, hypothetically, somebody could do everything right with their consulting, but then when they go for that actual appraisal portion, if they said, and they had 2 new appraisal team members, might that affect their overall appraisal with
Correct.
having a weaker team?
Yes, because even if the lead appraiser sometimes can say, okay, it's all right, but if there can be, a flag from the institute saying that, okay, you had 2 new people, then how do you prove the validity of the results that they were verified? Because they did not have any prior experience. If they had a few appraisal experience, then that counts. That makes logical sense. But if they are completely new, they've just taken the training, they may not know how to link the evidences. They will not know which evidences are the correct evidences. It takes a little bit of experience to build that.
So it's fine to get more than one person trained, but for the actual appraisal, stick with 1 new person. Is what
Absolutely.
I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of the most common misconceptions for new people and CMMI appraisal. Are there any others that come to mind for you, or have we crossed all the big ones off today?
We have crossed the big ones off, but we'll continue chatting and figuring out any more questions that come up.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you much.
You're welcome. Bye now.